So my name's Pat Conaghan, and I'm the Shadow Minister for Financial Services. My background, I had nearly 2 decades as a solicitor and barrister in New South Wales. I had 3 law practices and employed around 20 people. Before that, I had 12 years in the New South Wales Police. I was a detective and a prosecutor. I was born and raised in a little town called Kempsey on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. And I think I am the most surprised person in the room that I am the Shadow Minister for Financial Services. But the most important thing, and the reason I'm telling you this, is because you need to know who is making decisions on your behalf in your industry. And can I firstly acknowledge the work of NIBA. Thank you to Richard and Nick for the invitation. And thank you to you, whether you've been in the industry for 5 years or 45 years. You are the custodians of an industry that is so important to business confidence. If there is not business confidence, then we lose jobs and the economy goes south. So the reason I told you about my background is because over that 20 years, I would have used every single service in this room. And I know how it impacted my business, those services that I used. So when you get a politician, and I don't like that word, most people when you say politician, it brings negative connotations. I normally say parliamentarians, because I think confidence, I talk about confidence in the economy, confidence in business, confidence in parliamentarians or politicians is at an all-time low. There is no doubt about that. And I think the reason for that is because we don't stand up here and expose who we really are. You don't know who we are. I could guarantee that almost every single one of you would not know the background of your local federal parliamentarian. And yet, we're out there, whether it's in government or in opposition, developing policy every single day that affect you and your industry. Right now, and I will be as apolitical as I possibly can because we're a broad church. Right now, though, there is not one politician in our federal cabinet who has ever been in business. Consider that. Not one politician has had to fill out a BAS, has had to counsel one of their employees, has to be the arbitrator of all, and yet they are in cabinet. They are in the room where it happens to make decisions that affect your industry, to make that policy that could make or break what you do. And I think that's really sad that there are people in cabinet, or the whole of the current cabinet has never experienced the hard times that some of you in this room have done, or the great times. So I honestly believe that that needs to change. And governments on both sides, in terms of policy and moving ahead for the insurance industry and across the board, have indeed failed over many years. And they failed because they haven't had that proper consultation. That is my job. That is what I should be doing, standing here. And last night I had a great night. I went to dinner and it was almost speed dating at dinner. And the conversations at each table was completely different. But it is incumbent on us as parliamentarians to be out here on the ground listening to you and what's important in your industry. Yes, there has to be that balance between the protections of customers and clients, but also to ensure that your industry remains strong to give that business, to give confidence to the business sector, particularly small and medium business, because they are the backbone, particularly in regional and rural Australia, they are the backbone of the Australian economy. Policy decisions matter. I'll go out on a tangent here at the moment. 3 years ago, Labor said, we're banning vapes. You're probably thinking, where's he going with this? Over the last 3 years, we've seen criminal organisations harness the vape and illegal tobacco industry to the extent you're now getting regular weekly fire bombings, attacks, etc., because of this policy. That was never going to work. We should have regulated it and brought in $7 billion a year into the coffers. But Labor said, oh no, we've got this great idea, we're going to ban it. What's happened in your industry? People who have shops or premises or businesses next door to these pop-up vaping shops can't get insurance. And that is a direct result of poor policy by government. And again, that's bringing my experience or real world experience into the room. We would never have done that because we knew it would never work. We have come, a long way though. There are some good policies, particularly in relation to mitigation. We've got the Disaster Mitigation Fund, which works quite well. And that's what we should be looking at in terms of policy, things that actually work. In my electorate of Coffs Harbour, through that mitigation fund, we've put in 4 enormous storm levies. And Coffs Harbour hasn't had a flood or damaging, destructive flood since then. Flip side of that coin, again, in my electorate, $5 million went to a resilience hub. That's not going to do anything. So whilst you might have a good idea, it's also the implementation of those ideas to help the industry. Over-regulation in your industry. That is one of my biggest bugbears. You are tied up in knots, and what that does in terms of you having to deal with compliance takes you away from your core business and your core customers. And that's something we need to change. I've recently picked a fight with ASIC because I really think that ASIC's target is to looking at the low-hanging fruit, and that is financial advisors. It's the insurance industry. Instead of working with the sector for prevention, intervention to grow, rather than looking at it for prosecution, litigation, and punishment. So I believe that we should be splitting ASIC up. We should have they can have their prosecutorial arm, their litigation arm, but we need an arm that works with the sector, that works with you to make sure that you're secure, that you grow, because when you do that, again, the flow and effect is business confidence. The most important thing right now, I had a briefing from the Chief Economist, with small and medium business is affordability and accessibility for insurance. That is the number one issue. It's not energy prices, it's not cost of living, it's making sure that they have affordable and accessible insurance. That is both up to us as government, and in opposition, we have an obligation to keep the government honest, and that is what we will continue to do. But that is about good policy based on consultation with the industry. Because as a former lawyer, former police officer, I'm not very good at insurance. So it has to come from you. And it has to be developed by people with real experience in the industry, with real experience in business, and people who understand that good policy or bad policy could make or break a sector. So we will continue to work as hard as we possibly can. I'll continue to be out on the ground. I'm pretty thick-skinned, so you can ask any questions, or I'll hang around for a few hours afterwards. But I was very interested to hear what everyone last night said. Thank you for the work that you do. Continue to do that, please. And I'll continue to make sure that the industry is here for a long time to come. So thank you very much.
I liked your comments around having a thick skin. I was reading your maiden speech. Your father was a doctor in Kempsey, and there was a lady, when you were doing your campaigning, came up to you and said, look, I wouldn't normally vote for you or vote for the Nats, but seeing your father delivered 6 of my kids, I guess I'm going to have to. I thought that was a great story. I'm interested just picking up a couple of points in your discussion. As a group, and something that we've been talking about over the last day or so, is all around shaping change. How can brokers best engage with government, with opposition, to deal with these issues around the mitigation, which is a huge big picture issue, but also regulatory challenges that we have? What's the best way this group can engage?
That's a good question. I think the obligation, first and foremost, is on us as parliamentarians.
Yeah.
And I'll be blunt. The Liberal Party over the past 2 terms has effectively been wiped out. They've lost 31 seats in 2 terms. The Nationals have kept every single seat.
That's right.
And I honestly believe the reason for that is we are out on the ground. We are in our communities. We see it. We say it as we see it. I try not to hold back. I'm probably too honest for my own good at times. But back to your question, we should be out on the ground engaging the sector.
Yeah.
Once we do that, you get the confidence of individual brokers, the peak bodies, to say, well, actually, Pat's not a bad bloke. He listens and then he does. And that is the role of government.
Yeah, it is.
So unfortunately, not everybody does that. And that's reflected in election cycles, election wins and election losses. But it is incumbent on the peak bodies to represent, and I know you do, and the obligation of a minister, a shadow minister, is to ensure that the door is open, to listen to what your views are of what's important, particularly in terms of policy development.
And whilst, Pat, there's a lot of geopolitical talk at the moment and what the meeting overnight, over the next 12 months, what do you see on your horizon across your broad expanse on financial services as being the biggest issues we need to be across?
Look, the biggest issue is definitely affordability and accessibility. We have seen significant premium increases, particularly in areas where, and I've had very blunt discussions with many people about why the premiums continue to go up where there haven't been any losses, any claims. You have your flood mitigation, your flood mapping, and things are going to get tougher, in my view, over the next 18 months, 2 years. But again, and I think I said it 3 or 4 times, it's imperative that we have affordable, accessible insurance to keep that business confidence. Because if that collapses, then everything collapses. So that would be the number one issue.
And your electorate spans from Port in the south up towards Coffs and a bit inland. So you're right in the centre of these increasing weather events. How do you find the resilience of those communities to withstand more of these weather events and the impact it has on them, both financially, but more importantly, personally?
Yeah. So since 2019, that's when I first came into this role. It was the end of a 5 or 6 year drought. We then had the Black Summer bushfires, then had the floods in 2020, COVID, and then another 3 significant flood events since then. Country people are resilient in any event. Generational farmers, people who've been living there, understand the risks and they accept those risks. But I think since 2019, the work that has been done by the industry and by government, people who have lived there for generation after generation are now thinking about risk mitigation. They're now not just saying, well, that's what happens. What can I actually do to mitigate my loss without relying on government, without relying on the industry?
Is that a role you see brokers can help your constituents and broadly around Australia, is providing some of those simple mitigation or risk management advice or tools or support in the community to help them become more resilient?
Look, absolutely. It's all about education. Go out into the country and most people wouldn't know that we have a fund, a mitigation fund. They would never have heard about it. But they would know about insurance brokers because they need you. The farmer, the person who has a business in town that has to get their PI. So the more of you who are out there saying, do you know that you can do this, or do you know that this is available to you, or perhaps if you did this, then it might cost you $50,000, but it'll save you $100,000 in the long run. Definitely those conversations are important, and it's an education piece which you all understand, the average punter doesn't.
And just changing gears a bit, we've had a fair bit of discussion over the last 24 hours and ongoing about regulation. And it seems in financial services, particularly insurance broking, we're feeling a lot of that, where instead of looking at what's trying to be achieved to protect the client, we're just layering more regulation on top of other regulation. What's your view about how we can go about unpacking that and get back to almost a blank sheet of paper, and what are we trying to achieve and how do we go about doing that?
I think a lot of the over-regulation, I do believe that financial services over-regulated. Yes, there's that delicate balance between making sure that the sector performs professionally and properly. And let's face it, you're always going to have people in the industry, and I'll use law as an example, where you get lawyers, fiddling their trust accounts. You're always going to get a bad apple in there. But generally, overwhelmingly, people in the sector want to do the right thing. They're professional. They're a business. They want to make money. That's great. But to over-regulate, and I mentioned there's so much red tape and with compliance right now, you're doing that, you're spending not only time, but money, and that's preventing you from actually growing and from servicing your clients properly. I do have a real issue, and I spoke about it with ASIC. I think they're taking the wrong approach. They're there at the moment, they are just looking for the low-hanging fruit to punish, and that shouldn't be their role. They should be there to help you grow. If there's a problem, say, look, you need to change your practices. You need to do this differently. And then if you don't, if you're doing the right thing, fine, prosecute. But at the moment, they're just getting generally, and I know there's financial advisors in here, they're picking the low-hanging fruit and prosecuting them, and then ignoring, which they did, and there's evidence of this, serious breaches like First Guardian and Shield in the superannuation domain. That sat there for 12 months and they did nothing. Now, the fault should be laid squarely at the feet of ASIC. If you didn't have the resources that you needed, why didn't you come to government and say, we don't have those resources? Otherwise, what have you been doing when it was reported to you 12 months ago?
Just further to the environment type question, we heard from Minister Molino yesterday, who said he's in the invidious position of having written the flood inquiry report with its 86 recommendations, and now finding himself having to put it or ensure it gets put in place.
Yep.
How's your working relationship with the government on these broader community benefit issues such as the flood report?
Look, I'm lucky. Daniel Molino, I believe, is a good member. We meet every time we're down in Canberra, so we'll sit down at the beginning of the week and we'll go through the issues of the day, and we're very honest with each other, because the first time I met with him, I sat down and said, I've conducted my whole professional life, whether it was a copper, or a lawyer, a barrister. If we have a conversation in a room, then it stays in the room.
Yep.
And we need to work together rather than throwing rocks at each other, because that's not going to help the finance sector. So we're working very well. I call out the government rather than calling out Daniel when they sit on reports for 9 months, 12 months, and don't make things a priority, just kick the can down the road. But I think it would be good to see the role of the Minister for Financial Services, or the Shadow, to be put into Cabinet.
Yeah.
Because
agree.
You can make recommendations outside of Cabinet. I'm out of Cabinet, and so is Daniel. You can make recommendations into the room, but it's the room that makes that decision. So we really should be inside, because let's face it, Daniel and I both, he's the Assistant Treasurer, and I'm the Shadow Assistant Treasurer as well. But they're massive portfolios. They are the biggest portfolios in government. Those two should be inside Cabinet, so Daniel can actually have a bit of power at the table.
That's a really good point, and would totally support that. And as you settle into your role as Shadow Minister, how are you finding the portfolio firstly, and how are you also finding the engagement with the sector?
I have to admit, I didn't sleep for the first 2 weeks. I lay in bed at night thinking, what have I done? But I'm really enjoying the portfolio. I've found that all of the different industries, different sectors, are very keen to allow me to lean on them to get up to speed with their particular challenges and what they need and what they see the policies should be, and where they go in the future. I'm really enjoying it. I've been in the role probably 4, maybe 5 months. Yeah. It's a little bit like going back to university, but it's been incredibly enjoyable. And look, as I said, my door's always open for any part of the finance industry or people who want to talk to me about tax reform, which we definitely need.
Yes, absolutely.
Quietly. We're not going to be in opposition forever. Whether that's under Barnaby Joyce's One Nation, who knows?
Barnaby's in the adjoining seat of you, isn't he? Yeah, that's right. So we look forward to that engagement, but particularly want to acknowledge and thank you for spending time with us last night and today. We really want to work with you, and Rich and I had a really great meeting with you the other month. We look forward to continuing that dialogue. We've got a lot of things that we feel that we can help the sector with and the broader community, and we look forward to working with you to help put that in place.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Can you please thank Pat Conaghan, please, Shadow Minister? Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Pat.
It's great.
Cheers.